Choosing the right color palettes for your designs can be really tough, and I struggle with this as well. So today I'm going to share with you my process and show you how with a few simple steps you can create an amazing color palette that really resonates with your target audience. We're going to talk about how to pick the right colors, what color palettes you even need in your color system, and how to use some really simple tools to get you started. To start off, I want to broadly discuss the topic of color psychology. Now, I'm nowhere an expert on this subject, but this is just a general idea to think about. Just as humans, colors innately connect to different things for us, and that can depend on your culture, where you're from, your religion, even your gender. So many factors come into play here, and one color can mean one thing to one person, it could mean a completely different thing to another. But there are some key kind of words and emotions that come up when you think of different colors. So here's a little example for you. For example, when you think of red, it's usually something that's connected to ambition, to passion, to anger, to energy, strength, confidence. If you're from certain parts of the world, it can even come with the idea of wealth or success, stuff like that. When you think of purple, it could be elegance, royalty, wisdom, yeah? So when you're choosing your color palette or your brand colors, you want to think about this. You want to think, what am I going to convey? How am I going to use color psychology to my advantage? The second thing we need to think about is color theory. Now, again, I'm just gonna, sprinkle a little knowledge on you rather than going really deep into this, because we could have a whole 2-hour session just on color theory. But we're not going to do that. So color theory is basically the practical combination of art and science and showing what colors have a kind of a harmonious relationship with each other. And these are the 6 kind of ways of looking at it. There are other ways, there are more nuanced kind of combinations, but these are the 6 that I kind of want you to be familiar with. We've got all of these different kinds of combinations that create that harmony for us. So like I said before, we're finding these systems to help us out. I'm not expecting anyone to just say, this color, this color, this color works, because most of us don't have that way of thinking. So we have these kinds of tools and we can use the color wheel to help us find these combinations. Now, the first thing that we want to do is choose our primary color. Now, the primary color sometimes is known as a brand color. If you're working for a company or a certain brand that already has this, they may just hand it over to you, but sometimes you are the one that needs to choose this. Now, when you're choosing a brand color, you really need to think about what you want to convey, what's your message, your target audience, all of that. So in your files, you've got this. Now, this is my system for creating kind of a foolproof color system that will have everything you need just inside of it ready to go. Now, I'm going to recommend to you, if you're using your exercise file, grab this and just duplicate it and just use the duplication rather than using the original. I'm going to hide the original by using the little eye on the layers panel, and then just if I need to redo everything, I could just grab the original one. You can see over here in the primary section, we've got these 5 little squares. I'm going to go with the primary one and I'm going to select my brand color. So let's say I've gotten a brand color from the people I work with and I've got the hex from them. So I'm just going to paste it in here. This is the color that they want to use for their brand. It's kind of a periwinkly color. It was very trendy. So yeah, let's go with that. So I've set that in. That's step 1 done. Now you'll see on the left and on the right side, we've got these 10, 25, 75, 100. Now these are the kind of different shades of the primary color. I find that for me, it's really useful to have those different shades to use as background, maybe some text we'll use it later on, some images, some graphics, stuff like that. You'll see this a lot of times with like a 10 to 900 scale that gives you a really wide range of colors. But I find that all I need is 2 lighter ones and 2 darker ones. Now, I'm going to let you in on a little trick that I use to get those different shades that uses HSB. Now, HSB stands for hue, saturation, and brightness. Let me show you what that means. If I click on my primary color and I change this here to HSB, see I get some different numbers. So H is hue, and you see if I change the color over here, that number changes. The second one stands for saturation. So that is how much saturation I actually have, which will be kind of this axis going from really saturated to really white. And then the last one shows me brightness. So that's going to go on this axis from really dark to really light again. So what I'm going to do is use the HSB in order to help me get the different shades. Now there are loads of tools online that help you do this as well, so feel free to use one of those, but I'm going to show you my method. As you can see, I've just dropped in kind of a screenshot of what my brand colors HSB are. I'm going to select 10 and I'm going to start with the kind of both of the edges and then move my way in. I'm going to click on I to get my eyedropper tool and copy my brand color. Now this one is on the lighter side of the scale, so I know my brightness needs to be higher. My brightness currently is 88, so I'm going to go about 90, maybe 95 to get it really bright. And then my saturation also needs to be lower. So right now it's at 63. I'm going to put it somewhere between 5 and 15. So let's try 10. Ooh, yeah, I like that. But I kind of want maybe a bit more brightness even, maybe 97. That works. Remember that this color is going to be the color that really gives us kind of a backgroundy vibe. So it can be really, really subtle. Let's try 5, see what happens. Too much. Let's give this 8. Perfect. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the other edge. If I go here and select this, now I know I need my saturation to be really, really high because I want it to be on the darker side of the scale. So I'm going to go again between 85 and 95. Let's give it a 90. Okay, great. And then my brightness, I don't want to go all the way to 0. If I go all the way to 0, what's going to happen is it's just going to be black. So I want to go somewhere between 15 and 25. So let's put it at 20. Maybe too much. Sorry, 25. Yeah, that's nice. Maybe I'll give it a bit less of this, maybe 86. So there's no rules here. There's no one right way of doing it. Just play around and see what works for you. So I've dropped in some more screenshots just so we can see all of them at the same time. In order to create the middle one, I'm literally just going to find the middle, okay? And notice that my hue color never changes. And this is kind of key for a primary color. If we go back to color theory, you remember when we saw monochromatic, which shows us that we use one color and different shades and tones within that color. So we do not want the hue to change at all. So if we look at what's going to be between primary and 10, it's going to be, I'm going to use my brand color again using I, and I want to find kind of a number between 8 and 63. Now you can use a calculator for this, it is allowed, but I'm going to try and just say something like maybe 30, something like that. And again, I want it to be a bit more bright, so maybe let's say 92. Yeah, that works. And see, it's not an exact art. Just play around with it and see what you can find. Let's try 75 now. I'm going to select this one. And again, starting with your brand color really helps you out. So I need a number between 63 and 86, sorry. Let's just try 70, maybe 72. And then I want the brightness to be a lot lower. So between 88 and 25, let's try 50. That works. How quick was that? And we've already got our primary colors. Now, I'll let you in on a little secret. Sometimes this is all you need, yeah? Sometimes having these 5 colors, done. That's my color palette, okay? So even that step is a really quick win for us. If you need 5 colors, 8 colors, 9 colors, just use the monochromatic scale and get those in-betweens from the HSBs. And you can be really exact with it. You can just use math. You can also use loads of online tools that just split the color out for you straight away. Now we move into our next thing, which is secondary colors. Secondary colors are sometimes known as accent colors, and these are colors that complement our main color and help us create something we want to highlight or something that we want to really pop out at our user. Now, for finding a secondary color, I like to use an online tool called Adobe Colors. Adobe Colors is a great tool. There's loads of tools similar to it online, but this is one I kind of find the most intuitive to use. It basically gives you that color wheel and lets you choose between the different kind of harmony rules here on the side. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to jump back into Figma and I'm going to take my primary color, copy that hexadecimal over to here, and I'm going to place it in the central one. Now we're on this color harmony and it's going to show us the colors that are kind of next to it on our color wheel. And what I like to do when it comes to accents is I like to select 2 accents. And again, there's no one rule to this. Do whatever looks correct to you and matches your brand and your design aesthetic. So in Square, I've got this pink that I feel like is really good for my brand because I've just decided that my brand is a really youthful brand. So pink works. So I'm going to grab this, I'm going to copy it over and paste it into my first accent. Now, for my second accent, what I like to do is a bit weird, but I like to find an accent for my accent rather than an accent for my primary color. Now, usually this works because if there was color harmony once, there'll be color harmony again. Sometimes it doesn't work, but let's try it. I've got this pink color copied. I'm just going to paste it into here and then see what comes up. So I've got these lovely colors here. Let's see if any of them really work for me. Ooh, yes, I love this one. So I'm going to try this one and I'm going to paste it in to my original and just have a look at it. Sometimes all you need is just look at it and see if it feels like it works. And later on, we'll try it on some real designs and see if it actually fits for us. But yeah, for now, I'm really happy with that. So secondary colors, done. Now, neutral colors is sometimes something that is very easily skipped, but I think it's quite essential for you to know what you're going to use in terms of your blacks, your whites, and your shades in between. Now, I have a little trick for you here that gives a little pop for the neutral colors to not just be neutral colors, but be neutral colors that are connected to your primary color. Now, if we jump into here, I've kind of set it out in this way where you have a black, dark gray, gray, light gray, white. If you want to have more in between, that's fine. You can also just use black, gray, and white, but I find that this split is kind of the in-between ground that you want. So to start off, I'm going to go from the darkest shade to the lightest shade. So for black, we could just go here and even type in 000, and we just get black. But I wouldn't recommend doing that. What I usually do is try and connect this to the brand color. So again, I'm going to grab my brand color from here using I and open again the magic that is HSB. And I'm going to try and see what happens if I go for really, really high saturation, so 99, and then I'm going to go really low on my brightness. So I'm not going to go for 0 because that will just give us black. What I want is to maintain this 223. I want to stay in that hue. So I can just grab my circle and really pull it even to 100 saturation and go all the way down until it's black, but I still have a bit of that hue left. So I'm even going to put it at 5, for example. And I know to us this just looks black, but there is something connecting us to that hue still. Yeah, and if I click on it, you see I still have that 223 hue color with me. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the white. I'm going to go up here, grab my brand color, and then I'm going to click on this. I'm going to go to I don't want to go to full on zeros and 100s usually. I want to start off with like a small number and then I might move to it. So I want to go to 5 and then I want to go really bright. But we don't want it to be 100. So let's say 99. So that's a bit too much color. Let's see what happens if I put it on 1. Perfect. Okay, so this is white, but it's white that has a tiny little tint of our color still inside of it. So for gray, I want to find that in-between color just like we did before. So I'm going to go to black here, open it up, see that I'm still on my correct hue. I've moved a bit, so I'm just going to make sure I'm still on my correct hue. Then I'm going to just play around and find a gray that I like. Yeah, I think that's a pretty solid gray for me to use. And then I'll grab this one. And then you see I've lost my hue. So I'm just going to come back to my hue, bring it in a bit down. Oh, that's lovely. I like that. And then I see that this one has lost the hue. So I'm going to go back and say 223, just bring it in a tiny bit. Once the saturation is at 0, you're going to lose the hue. So you need the saturation to be at least at like 1. So that's perfect for me. Maybe even a bit more. And then light gray, I'm going to copy this one. And then just make it a bit lighter. There we go. So if you want, you can just use normal black, white, and then the grays in between. Just find kind of a random one in the middle that you like, or even just Google it to find a gray to a black to white palette. But I really like to use this tiny little trick to add that hue in there and tie in your brand color. The last bit of the color palette that I use is using Semantic Colours. Now, Semantic Colours are also known as feedback colors, and they're basically colors that are associated with something that is happening in your design. The 4 most common ones are a good one or a positive one, information, warning or critical, and bad error. Now, again, this is dependent on your culture, where you are in the world, what's kind of the standard in the industry, but usually good positive is some sort of green, information is some sort of blue, warning critical is some sort of orange, and then bad and error is some sort of red. So we could just choose 4 different colors, or we could do what we've done before and connect them to our brand color. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to select success, for example, copy my primary color using I, and then when I go in here, I want to change the hue to be green, and I'm not going to touch anything else. I'm going to keep the exact same saturation and exact same brightness. We can adjust it later, but for now, let's test this out. I like that. Do the same for error. We need a red. Warning. We need an orange. And information, we need a blue. Now, because our brand color is already blue, we want to find something that's different enough from that or any of its hues. So now we have these colors, and the reason we use that HSB slider is because we want a color that has the same kind of brightness. So it's not super bright or super dark. It stays within the same kind of color palette. And you see that all of these work really harmoniously together. Now we can go in and make some tiny adjustments if we want, just to make sure that none of our semantic colors are too close to our accent colors, or none of them are a bit too bright or just don't really go. But even that is just enough. You've just selected those 4 colors. Now we can use them for feedback for our user when they've done something correctly, when they're missing something, when they didn't fill out a form correctly, or anything like that. Now you'll notice that next to my semantic colors, I've got a 10 and a 100 ready. Now for these, this is kind of the one step extra. I like doing this because it might come in handy later on, but I like to create that shading for my semantic colors as well. And I don't need a massive kind of shading. I just need one lighter version and one darker version. I'm going to do that using my HSB trick from before. I'm just going to do that quickly, and using the magic of editing, you will see it happen now. Did it work? So you can see that I've created little shades for us, just as I said. And this can be used, for example, if you have a little box that says, success, you've done it. It can have a lighter shade background, the text can be darker shade, or the border could be a darker shade. And these, once you put them into practice, you might need to adjust them a tiny bit if you're using them for text, because some of them might be a tiny bit too bright sometimes. But again, it's all tiny adjustments that we can make together. So look at that. We have created an entire color palette. We've got everything that we could need for our designs. And now the last step is actually making these into styles. Now styles are basically reusable properties. It could be a reusable fill, stroke, effect, image style, anything like that. And we create it once, we give it a name, we can give it a description, and then we can reuse it in our file. So just want to show you how to do that, because this will be very, very necessary in our color system. So you have this in your exercise file. We've got these 2 little rectangles, and what I want you to do is I want you to click on one of them. It could be the one under the word primary. And we see in our fill right now, it's on D9, 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 but we want to give it a specific color. Don't worry too much about what color you're using right now. Let's just use this red. So if I want to reuse this color, let's say this is my brand color, and I'm going to want to reuse it over and over again in my design file. I want to give it a name and store it in a way so everyone can use it and we all know we're using the same one. So the way to do that is by creating a style. If I go into my design panel, you'll see that next to the plus where I can add an additional fill, I've got this 4 little squares. Now these 4 squares are styles, and you'll find them everywhere where there's properties. If I click on that, right now I have no color styles available. So I'm going to add one, and I'm going to call it my red. If I create that, now you can see, instead of having fill and the little square with the color, I've got the style name that says my red. If I click on the canvas, so just click on nothing, you can see that in the design panel now, I've got a local style section, and I've got color styles, and my red is there. If I hover over it, I can edit it, I can give it a description to say, use for titles, for example. And then when I hover over it, and I just hover over this, I'll get my red used for titles. So you can really create documentation for your design system to tell people when to use these specific colors. Now let me show you one cool trick. Right now I've got just color styles and I've got my red, but what if I want to create kind of a really neat organized system and I want to create a folder? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this square, I'm going to give it a different color, let's say this purple. And I am going to create a style, but instead of just typing in a name, I'm going to create a slash. Now, if you've watched my previous videos, you know that slashes create folders in Figma. So let's call it my colors slash purple. Now, when I create that, if I go back to the canvas, you see I now have a folder. So I've got a folder called My Colors. Inside of it, I have purple. Now I can move this one into here if I want. I can also create a new style just from here. I don't have to do it on an actual, shape in the canvas, but it's just easier to do it that way. And also, if I'm using a style, I can tap here and change it to a different style. I can also detach it, which means I am going back to just a normal fill color. So that's out of the way. We know how to create styles. Let's move on to actually creating our color palette. So to start off, I just want to remove the styles that we've created previously. So we have a really blank canvas to work on. So if you click on your canvas, you'll get these, click on this, and then just delete 2 styles. The next thing we want to do is convert these colors into styles. If I look at these colors right now and I select them, you can see that they're really brilliantly named for you. And like we said before, using a slash will create a folder. So I've created all of this for you and you have this in your design file to use as many times as you need, but please don't change any of the names because we need this. Now we could go one by one and go to fill and then styles and create a style. We could do that. Or we could use an amazing plugin that will do this quickly for us. So I'm going to go into my resources tool and click on plugins, and then I'm going to search for a plugin called Styler. This is our tool here. Now we have extract, generate, apply, detach, remove. But what I want to do is generate new styles. For that, I need to select the shapes that have the colors on them ready to go. So what I'm going to do is use the layers panel and I'm just going to select everything here. So that's going to select all of my little shapes that have the colors on them. And I'm going to right click, plugins, styler, and generate styles. If you don't have styler available when you right click, just do it from the resources panel. Once I generate, you'll see here it's created 24 styles. If I click on my canvas, I've got everything here and it's nicely in these folders. That's amazing. So if I drop in a new shape, I'm going to click on O and just drop in a circle. Click on styles. I've got all my styles here. And I can swap between grid view and list view to look at them just in a different way. And yeah, like we said before, I can go in here, I can add a description just to make it really clear when we want to use them and all of that. And that is it. In such a short session, we've created this really comprehensive color palette that has everything that we might need in it. We learned about primary colors, secondary colors, neutral colors, semantic colors. We learned about how to create reusable styles, a color wheel, color psychology. I really hope that now you will never be afraid of creating a color palette and choosing your own colors for your designs. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you at the next one.